Hello and welcome to my first hack. In this video, we're going to explore enumeration and try out some Nmap commands. We'll look at the flaw hypothesis methodology and provide a hypothesis of our own. We'll also analyze the flaws and ways to prevent them in the future. So let's dive in. Starting off with conducting enumeration and footprinting, we're going to see what devices are available on the network and what our information is. Here you can see that our Kali IP address is 192.168.128. You can also tell that there are multiple network connections because you have Ethernet 0 and Ethernet 1. Next, we're going to scan for the operating system. So in order to scan for other operating systems on the network, we have to run the Nmap TAC O with the IP range for the network using a /24. In doing so, you can see that there is another IP of 192.168.108.2. This has to be our Keyoptrix machine or our target machine because it's the only other device powered on within my virtual environment. You can also see which services are running on that operating system and their status. Next, we want to truly analyze which services are running on the target machine. Which ones can we shut down? They could be outdated or incompatible versions. So using Nmap TAC SV as the root or pseudo user, you can see that the DNS service is open, but it fails to return which version or OS it's using. Now we're going to analyze the vulnerable ports with an intrusive scan. In doing so, we're going to run Nmap TAC P TAC space TAC A and the target IP. This then tells us that the DNS port is open for TCP traffic and the specific version type. We can try to exploit that later on. Before proceeding, it's always good to do a system update. In order to do so, we'll just run the app-get update, making sure we have an internet connection, because then we'll pull down the latest Kali updates from the internet. If this were to fail, we might only have the hosted adapter NIC connected, so be sure to watch out for that if you're performing this on your own. For our next command, we're going to try to scan for all TCP port versions, so we know what type of attacks or connection types we need to use for an exploit. You can see the command here, and you have to run as user. When deceiving IP personality, we're going to try and fool Nmap into believing the Keyoptrix box is actually a Windows PC or any other type of device than the CentOS. You can see that it can't pull the exact machine type, but it does fail to identify the details of the PC. Now we're going to test for denial of service vulnerability. Here we're going to re-verify the vulnerability of open ports for a denial of service or brute force attack. You can hear that we're testing the script for denial of service and trying to ping the target device. Now we're going to actually perform the denial of service attack on the Keyoptrix target machine. For this attack, we're going to flood the port with requests and make it unavailable for anyone to use. While the DNS service is open, we also try testing on the FTP service because that's a very vulnerable port. It does show here that it is closed and validates that the attack was successful. Flaw hypothesis methodology is system analysis and penetration technique in which the specification and documentation for an information system are analyzed to produce a list of hypothetical flaws. It then lists the flaws and prioritizes them based on the estimated probability that it actually exists and the ease to which it can be exploited, and the extent of control or compromise it would provide. For our system, it would have been imaginable to take down the website or external services by causing a brute force attack and overwhelming the DNS or FTP service, provided that they're open. Here we're going to see our vulnerability map, which is where we're going to analyze what type of attacks would disrupt the environment and what the likelihood of being able to use the attacks would be. Since the DNS port was the one found in the vulnerability scans, you can see here that we used it as a potential vulnerability, and have the FTP port available as well. We conducted the brute force attack, which provided port closure and denial of service, and the success was high. So it's going to be a light consequence and high disruption because for a brief period of time, authorized users are not going to be able to access their content. They're easy to detect and carry out, so those were safe bets. Being able to install rootkits or a backdoor or cause a technological change could happen and disrupt the services, but we would have to perform multiple attacks and be dedicated for much longer periods of time to exploit the TCP connections. Finally, causing a virus or system failure, they're just not likely because we were starting out with just a basic hacking experience. The types of flaws that we found during our attack, as previously stated, were OpenDNS and FTP and brute force exploit as a denial of service. This was likely caused to the lack of logging and monitoring on DNS and FTP, so admins aren't tracking exactly which devices and services are valid in order to prevent attacks. It's also a lack of using secure protocols and ports. Also, the device could be hardened to allow only valid IP addresses or MAC addresses, or authenticated users to communicate with the DNS service and secure file transport protocol that would have to be validated. Finally, there is probably a lack of administrative restrictions, so too many admins are making changes and configuration settings to DNS and FTP, so no one noticed a vulnerability and thought that nobody could be attacked. Thank you so much.